And on a different note, colonialism. It's a source of ongoing debate in culture and society. For thousands of years, empires have extended their reach to dominate and exploit other territories, sometimes crossing entire oceans in the process. But are we living in a post-colonial society today? An ambitious cultural project brought together 19 artists from around the world to discuss post-colonialism. Our culture correspondent, Maya Margate, caught up with the artists who participated.
Does colonialism still exist? Or are we truly in a post-colonial era? These are some of the tough questions a group of artists in Israel are trying to answer. At the Benyamini Ceramics Gallery in Tel Aviv, nearly 20 artists, including Israelis, Palestinians, and others from outside the Middle East, came together for the post-colonialism project. For 30 days, they crisscrossed Israel and the West Bank while attending lectures on post-colonial theory. The results? An exhibition featuring a medley of ceramics, performance, and mixed media art.
Well, post-colonial theory has been around for a really long time, and the show attempts to deal with a lot of these questions raised by post-colonial theory, which are articulated in very interesting ways in Israel.
Another question the show asks, how do we define borders in the digital age? Rock, a Taiwanese artist, attempts to provide an answer with his work, featuring hundreds of mini QR codes. When scanned, each one reveals an image connected to Taiwan's colonial history.
I think code is a new kind of international language. You have cell phones, you have iPad, and other high-tech devices where you can scan the QR code and get the information. It's the new way for people to communicate with each other.
And get the information.
As in Wang's work, the whole picture can never be seen all at once when it comes to colonialism. Like in Israeli artist Ayelet Zohar's work, titled The Museum of Unnatural History. The dioramas and sculptures are inspired by a news story from 2009. Zookeepers in Gaza painted black stripes on white donkeys, creating fake zebras.
The pictures were stunning, and I really thought that was so provocative and really performed some sort of ideas about simulation and mimicry and relationship between original and copy and nature and unnatural.
The landmark exhibition also explores post-colonialism from a specifically Israeli perspective. In Israel, the very use of the word colonialism is highly controversial.
Can I speak about Israel within the context of colonization itself? And there's the word apartheid that keeps getting attached to Israel today in the media. And what I see, what the bias that I noticed was that there is, depending on what you're watching on the news, they're very different. My experience here is very different to what I would expect it to experience.
In their multimedia installations, both Mudisa and Niha look at the body as landscape.
Political situations might be different in different places. The human situation is the same, and so I wanted to work with that sort of understanding of the porosity of these ideas and the fluidity of these ideas.
Ultimately, the post-colonialism exhibition asks many questions, but does not claim to have all the answers. Still, it's clear that the legacy of imperialism is one that continues to inspire artists everywhere.
And our correspondent Maya Margate joins us now. Thank you, Maya, for that report. I love the QR codes mosaic. That was a really neat piece. But when you talk about colonialism in Israel, it's a very loaded word. Did you hear any criticism from the artists or the exhibition towards the use of that word?
I think the exhibition really tried to keep it open-ended on the term post-colonialism. The title of the exhibition itself is post-colonialism with a question mark. So they're really kind of trying to make you question what that term is. Does it really apply to Israel? Or does Israel maybe need a more site-specific term? Because I think for most Israelis, it's very controversial to talk about colonialism. And certainly, like the early Zionists, the pioneers, did not think of themselves as colonialists. And they were more aligned with socialists and different kinds of movement. And I don't think the term actually applies so much in Israel, to be honest.
And who funded this project?
It's quite interesting because you would think a project on colonialism would not get funding from the culture ministry in Israel, but actually it was partially funded by the Ministry of Culture and Miri Regev, who has this new culture bill called Loyalty and Culture, which does not allow artists necessarily to have these kind of highly charged exhibitions, but the curator told me that she didn't have any issues getting funding from the government. And I think it's interesting in a sense that maybe there was some kind of PR aspect to this whole residency.
So we saw a variety of exhibitions, and we see this Indian woman dancing. What were some of the more interesting pieces, I guess you could say, works?
Well, I think Niha's the woman dancing, I think her work was quite interesting because there was a performance, there was spoken word, there was also an installation, there was sculpture, there was photography, there was sound. She basically had almost every kind of media you can imagine in one work, and it was all going together, and it takes you a long time to look at everything. So that was one of the more interesting works, and as you mentioned, the QR codes is another one because it brings in digital, the digital aspect of colonialism, post-colonialism. What does it mean to not have borders maybe in the digital age? Do we still have the same kind of borders? Are we able to communicate differently with new technologies? So yeah, I would have to say those two.
And can people go see this exhibit now?
Yeah, it's open for the next few months.
At what museum?
At the Binyamini Ceramics Gallery in Tel Aviv.
Very cool. So be sure to check that out. Thank you, Maya, so much for this.